January 22, 1943. Dawn. The coconut groves west of Point Cruz, Guadalcanal. The air smells of rotting fruit, cordite, and death. Humidity clings to everything like a second skin. Second Lieutenant John George kneels behind a shattered palm trunk, sweat stinging his eyes, heart hammering against his ribs. In his hands, a rifle every officer in the 132nd Infantry Regiment has ridiculed for months. A Winchester Model 70, pre-war civilian sporting wood, blued steel. A Lyman Alaskan scope that cost him 2 years of National Guard pay, and a mail order form filled out in a freezing Illinois armory in 1940. "George, you planning to hunt deer or Japs with that toy?" Captain Morris had sneered back at the tent lines, loud enough for the whole company to hear. Laughter rippled through the officers' mess. Even the sergeants shook their heads. The Army issued M1 Garands for a reason: 8 rounds, semi-automatic fast follow-ups. A bolt action was obsolete, a rich boy's plaything, a mail-order sweetheart. John ignored them. He had glass-bedded the action himself, hand-loaded every cartridge, and zeroed that rifle at 300 yards until 5 shots touched like a cloverleaf. He knew something the Army's ordnance tables didn't. In the jungle, the man who hits first usually doesn't need a second shot. Now 14 American boys lay dead in the last 72 hours, each dropped by a single 6.5 round from tree platforms the Marines never found. Japanese snipers, patient, invisible, lethal, own these groves. George wipes sweat from his brow with a filthy sleeve, thumbs a 173-grain boat tail into the magazine, and closes the bolt with a soft, deliberate click. Somewhere out there, high in the green hell, a Japanese sniper is glassing this exact piece of ground, waiting for another American to stand up. John George is about to give him a target. He raises the Winchester, cheek welded to the Monte Carlo comb, and peers through the scope for the first time in combat. The crosshair settles on a patch of shadow 320 yards away, and something moves. Crosshair trembles, just once, from the malaria shaking John George's arms. He forces his breath out slow, the way his father taught him on Illinois cornfields when he was 12. Trigger slack taken up. The world narrows to a circle of glass, 320 yards. A Japanese sniper perched on a crude platform of bamboo and vine, 30 feet up in a banyan tree. The enemy's Arisaka rifle glints faintly as he shifts for a better view of the American line. George's finger tightens. Crack. Not the sharp bark of an M1 Garand, but the deeper, authoritative roar of a .306 handload leaving a 24-inch barrel at 2,750 feet per second. The Winchester's muzzle jumps. Through the scope, George sees the enemy sniper's head snap backward, helmet spinning into the leaves like a dropped plate. The body slumps, held only by the ropes tied around its waist. 1 second, 1 shot, 1 dead sniper. George works the bolt smooth, practiced, almost gentle, and the empty brass pings off a coral rock. Before the echo dies, another Japanese rifle answers from a different tree. The round slices the air an inch above George's helmet. He drops flat, heart racing, but a grin splits his mud-caked face. They know where he is now. Good. Because now he knows exactly where they are. Within minutes, the jungle erupts. Japanese officers screaming orders in high-pitched bursts. Branches rustling as hidden spotters try to flank the American who just killed their best man. American GIs 30 yards behind George freeze, terrified, waiting for the lieutenant to be cut down the way the last 3 officers were. Instead, George crawls 10 yards left, rolls behind a fallen coconut log, and comes up shooting again. Crack. A second sniper topples, this time from 280 yards, crashing through the canopy like a sack of rice. The laughter back at battalion headquarters is suddenly very far away. By noon that day, George has 3 confirmed kills, each one with a single hand-loaded round. Word races up the chain faster than radio traffic. The mail-order rifle works. More than works, it dominates. But the Japanese are not finished. Far from it. Intelligence believes at least 20 specially trained snipers from the 2nd Division's elite marksman detachment still stalk these groves. Men who had studied under Captain Junichi Asako, the legendary shooter who once killed a Russian officer at 900 meters on the Manchurian border. They have a new mission now. Kill the American with the hunting rifle, at any cost. As dusk bleeds red across the Solomon Sea, John George lies prone in a shallow scrape, mosquito netting over his scope, counting heartbeats between breaths. He can feel the crosshair of an enemy scope crawling across his back like an insect. Tonight, the hunter becomes the hunted. January 22nd bleeds into January 23rd, moonless. Guadalcanal's night is a living thing, hot, wet, and loud with insects that sound like screaming children. John George has not slept in 21 hours. He lies motionless under a poncho smeared with mud and rotting leaves, the Winchester cradled like a child. Every 15 minutes he inches the rifle forward a fraction, just enough to keep the barrel free of dew. The Lyman Alaskan's lenses are capped. One stray reflection and he's dead. Across the grove, the Japanese have changed tactics. No more careless movement. No more silhouettes against the sky. They have gone to ground the way only men who grew up hunting tigers in Korea can. Some have lashed themselves into the crooks of trees so they can sleep without falling. Others have dug shallow spider holes at the base of trunks and covered them with palm fronds. Their spotters whisper range and wind into bamboo tubes that look like broken branches. George listens. He has learned the jungle's new language. The faint click of a safety, the creak of a vine rope taking weight, the almost human sigh when a man shifts position after hours of stillness. At 02:14 he hears it, 28 yards away, the softest scrape of cloth on bark. He uncaps the scope, lets his eyes adjust to starlight and waits. 10 minutes, 20, his legs go numb. Malaria chills rattle his teeth, but he does not move. Then a silhouette, barely. A Japanese sniper easing down a tree trunk head first, the way a lizard descends, Arasaka slung across his back. He is coming for George, coming to put a round through the American lieutenant scoped the way they did to a Marine sergeant 2 nights ago. George exhales until his lungs are empty, the old hunter's trick, and squeezes. Crack. The flash lights the jungle white for an instant. The descending sniper jerks, slides the last 6 feet and hits the ground with a wet thud. 4 kills. But the flash has betrayed George's exact position. Within seconds the night explodes. Tracers arc overhead. Mortar rounds walk toward his poncho like giant footsteps. George grabs the Winchester, rolls sideways into a shell crater and keeps rolling as dirt fountains around him. A fragment slices his left forearm, hot, clean pain, but he clamps the wound with his teeth and crawls on. By the time the barrage stops, he is 70 yards from where he started, bleeding into the mud, laughing silently because he is still alive and the rifle is still with him. Dawn finds him perched in the roots of an overturned banyan, bandaged with his own shirt, reloading by feel because his hands shake too hard to see. He has 6 rounds left in his pocket and 1 in the chamber. 4 confirmed kills in 24 hours. The battalion runner who finds him at 0800 can barely speak. Lieutenant, Captain Morris says you're to come back right now. Colonel wants you at HQ, says it's an order. George looks up, eyes bloodshot, face black with powder residue. Tell the colonel, he whispers, working the bowl. I'm not done hunting. He disappears into the green before the runner can argue. Back at regiment, the laughter has died completely. In its place, stunned silence and the first faint whispers of something close to awe. But the Japanese have summoned their best. A marksman whose name the Americans will never learn, only his nickname whispered in fear by Imperial Marines. Yamano Yurei, the mountain ghost. He is coming for John George, and he never misses twice. January 24, 1943, mid-morning. The temperature climbs past 100 degrees. The air itself feels like steam pressed from a corpse. John George has not eaten in 2 days. His arm is infected, swollen purple under the filthy bandage, but the fever sharpens everything. Colors burn, sounds cut like razors. He moves only in inches now, crawling through tunnels of kunai grass sharp enough to slice skin. The Winchester's stock is wrapped in tape where blood has soaked through. Intelligence, gathered from a terrified Japanese prisoner, finally gives the enemy champion a face. A 34-year-old sergeant major from Nagano Prefecture. Olympic tryout in 1936, trained on MT, Asama and blizzards. Reputed to have killed 12 Chinese officers at ranges beyond 600 meters with iron sights alone. The Americans call him the mountain ghost because men only see the flash, never the man. George knows he is being hunted by a predator who is better rested, better fed, and armed with a Type 97 sniper Arasaka fitted with a 4 times Japanese naval telescope, crude by Western standards but deadly in trained hands. At 10:47 George finds the perfect hide. A bomb crater half filled with brackish water ringed by fallen logs. He slides in belly first, arranges palm fronds over his back and becomes part of the earth. Scope capped, breathing shallow, he waits. 3 hours pass. Dragonflies land on the rifle barrel and drink his sweat. Then the faintest pressure wave in the grass, air, displaced by a body moving 30 yards to his left front. George does not turn his head. He waits another 8 minutes until the sun is behind him and the glare will be in the enemy's scope. Only then does he uncap the Lyman Alaskan. 420 yards away, almost at the limit of where .306 handloads stay supersonic, a patch of shadow resolves into the ghost himself. He is lying prone on a low hummock, camouflaged so perfectly he looks like a clump of vines that learn to breathe. His telescope is already on George's crater, 2 apex predators staring at each other down tunnels of magnified glass. Neither moves. 10 minutes, 20. A single bead of sweat rolls from George's temple, hangs on his eyelash, threatens to fall across the lens. If it drops, the reflection will bloom like a flare. He does not blink. The ghost makes the first mistake, almost imperceptible. He shifts his left elbow 2 inches to ease cramp. The movement is tiny, but the sun catches the edge of his scope for half a heartbeat. That is all John George needs. He has already dialed 4.5 minutes of elevation and a quarter minute left wind. The crosshair is not on the ghost's head. It is on the top edge of the scope turret itself, because at this range, a center mass shot might deflect off bone and wound instead of kill. George wants the bullet to enter just above the left eye and take the brain stem on exit. His finger takes up the first stage of the Winchester's trigger, crisp 2.5 pounds, tuned by his own files in a peacetime basement. The ghost sees the American's scope lens uncover. He knows. Both men fire at the same instant. 2 cracks, a quarter second apart, roll across the grove like overlapping thunder. George feels the hornet sting of the 6.5 bullet graze his right ear, parting hair and skin, splattering warm blood across the stock. The Winchester's recoil punches his infected shoulder so hard the world goes white. When vision returns, the clump of vines 420 yards away is no longer breathing. The mountain ghost is dead. George lies gasping, half deaf from muzzle blast inches from his ear. Blood runs down his neck and into his collar. He does not remember working the bolt, but there is a fresh round in the chamber and an empty case smoking beside his cheek. 5 kills now. Maybe 6. Another sniper, wounded by the same bullet that grazed George, is screaming somewhere in the grass. From the American lines comes a sound George has never heard before. Spontaneous cheering. Men are standing up in their foxholes, waving helmets, shouting his name like he just hit a home run in the World Series. Captain Morris is running toward the grove, helmet off, eyes wide, yelling something George cannot hear over the ringing in his ears. John George closes his eyes for the first time in 55 hours, presses his split forehead against the cool wood of the Winchester and whispers a single word, 7, because he already knows there are more out there, and he is just getting started. January 25, 1943, the 4th day. The groves west of Point Cruz have become a slaughter pen, but not for Americans anymore. 11 Japanese snipers now hang limp from trees or lie twisted in the grass, each killed by a single .306 hole placed exactly where George intended. The last one, a young corporal who tried to crawl away with both lungs collapsed, died only 20 minutes ago, whispering "Ten Ohaika" through blood-foamed lips as George covered him with a poncho out of simple human respect. John George has not stood fully upright in 96 hours. His arm is black with infection, his lips cracked and bleeding, his eyes so sunken they look like bullet holes in a white mask. The Winchester's stock is cracked from butt-stroking a Japanese officer who came at him with a bayonet in the dark. The scope is cracked too, a hairline fracture across the objective lens from the near miss at 420 yards, but it still holds 0. He is out of handloads. The last round in the rifle is a standard military ball cartridge he pulled from a dead Marine's bandolier. He hates it. The 150-grain bullet is lighter, drops 2 inches more at 300 yards, but it will have to do. Word of the one-man war has reached division headquarters. Major General Alexander Patch himself has sent a runner with written orders. Lieutenant George is to report to the rear immediately for medical evacuation. The runner finds George sitting on an ammo crate, cleaning the Winchester with a rag that was once a Japanese battle flag. "I'm not leaving," George says without looking up. His voice is hoarse, almost gone. Not while there's still one of them breathing in those trees. The runner, a kid from Brooklyn, stares at the 11 notches someone carved into the Winchester's forearm with a bayonet. He has no answer for that. Back in the battalion CP, the atmosphere has flipped completely. Captain Morris, the same man who called the rifle a toy, now keeps a handwritten tally on the situation map. Red X's for dead Japanese snipers, each one labeled George. When new officers arrive as replacements, they are shown the map first, then told, "Don't laugh at the lieutenant's hunting rifle, just don't." But the human body has limits even vengeance cannot ignore. At 14, 20 George actually stands to drag a wounded GI out of the line of fire. The world tilts. Malaria, dehydration, blood loss, and 4 sleepless nights hit him like a mortar shell. He collapses across the wounded man, shielding him with his own body as Japanese machine gun tracers snap overhead. Medics find them 10 minutes later. George is unconscious, burning with 105-degree fever, muttering in delirious fragments. Winds left to right 2 minutes, hold high on the helmet brim. They carry him out on a stretcher, the Winchester clutched across his chest like a child refuses to surrender a teddy bear. As the litter passes the command post, every officer in the 132nd stands at attention, no order given, no salute required, just respect. Captain Morris walks alongside the stretcher, helmet in hand. When George's eyes flutter open for a moment, Morris leans down. "John," he says, voice cracking, "you were right about everything." George manages the faintest smile, then slips back into darkness. Behind them, the coconut groves fall silent for the first time in weeks. No more sudden screams. No more men clutching their throats and falling without a sound. The snipers are gone. 11 of the Empire's best, erased by a mail order rifle and a National Guard lieutenant from Illinois who simply refused to miss. But the story doesn't end on that stretcher, because what John George proved in those blood-soaked groves is about to change the entire war. February 1943. Rear Area Hospital, Espiritu Santo. John George wakes to the smell of iodine and the distant thump of laundry machines. His left arm is a bandaged ruin. Quinine drips into his veins like ice water. For 3 days he drifts in and out of fever dreams where every tree has a Japanese sniper in it and the Winchester never runs dry. On the 4th morning a colonel he has never met walks in with 2 armed MPs and a photographer from Yank magazine. "Lieutenant George," the colonel says, "the commanding general wants your after-action report. Verbally, right now." George tries to sit up. The room spins. "Sir, the rifle, where's my rifle?" The colonel's face softens. "Locked in the division safe, under guard. We're not taking any chances with that thing." The report takes 2 hours. George speaks slowly, voice raw, describing every kill, every wind call, every trick he used to beat men who were supposed to be unbeatable. When he finishes, the colonel closes his notebook and asks the question everyone has been afraid to voice. Why did the Model 70 work when everything on paper said it should? George looks out the window at palm trees swaying in the trade wind. "Because the army was fighting the last war," he says. "They wanted volume of fire. The Japanese wanted one perfect shot. I just wanted to hit what I aimed at, and I had a rifle that would let me." The colonel leaves without another word. 3 days later, the first copies of a classified memorandum titled Observations on Individual Marksmanship, Guadalcanal, January 1943, begins circulating among senior officers in the South Pacific. No author is listed, but everyone knows whose words they are. Key points, each one a direct slap at pre-war doctrine. In thick jungle, maximum effective sniper range rarely exceeds 450 yards. Semi-automatic weapons sacrifice accuracy for speed. At ranges over 250 yards, the bolt actions tighter lock-up and heavier barrel win. Hand-loaded ammunition with 173-175 grain boat tail. Bullets outperforms military ball by 40-60% in wind and consistency. Civilian hunting scopes, especially Lyman Alaskan and Bear Cub 2.54 times, are superior to every military optic currently issued. The psychological effect of one-shot kills is devastating to enemy morale. Within weeks, quartermasters on New Caledonia are receiving frantic cables. Procure every Winchester Model 70, Remington 720, and Griffin and Howe, Springfield in theater. Strip civilian scopes from officers' luggage if necessary. Priority AAA sporting rifles begin appearing in the hands of Marine scouts on New Georgia. Army regiments on Bougainville suddenly have special observation teams, carrying glass-bedded bolt guns instead of Garands. No one calls them toys anymore. By Christmas 1943, the first unofficial sniper schools are running in the rear lines. 10-day courses taught by Guadalcanal veterans who learned from men who learned from John George. They teach breathing, trigger control, wind reading, and the phrase that becomes a mantra: speed is fine, accuracy is final. The Army still won't admit it publicly. The M1 Garand remains the poster child. But quietly, the Winchester Model 70 becomes the most feared rifle in the Pacific. Japanese intelligence reports speak in frightened tones of American hunters with magic rifles, who kill from distances their own men cannot match. And in a warehouse on Guadalcanal, John George's cracked, blood-stained Model 70 sits wrapped in oilcloth, waiting for its owner to come back from hospital. 11 Japanese snipers died, proving a point no ordnance board wanted to hear. 2,000 American lives, maybe more, will be saved because someone finally listened. Summer 1944. The war has moved north like a storm front. The Marianas bleed, Peleliu burns. On a forgotten corner of Pavuvu, a humid speck of coral where the 1st Marine Division licks its wounds after Guadalcanal, a quiet revolution is taking shape. Captain John George, promoted, awarded the Silver Star, and still limping from the infection that nearly took his arm, stands in front of 30 hand-picked men in sweat-stained dungarees. No rank insignia on their sleeves, no dog tags around their necks for the next 6 weeks. They are the first official class of what will eventually be called the Marine Corps Scout Sniper School. But right now, they are just 30 volunteers who heard the stories and wanted to learn the magic. George does not lecture from a manual. There is no manual yet. Instead, he lays his battered Winchester Model 70 on a crate in the sun. The same rifle, still with the hairline crack in the Lyman scope, and 11 faint notches worn smooth by countless hands. The Marines stare at it the way medieval knights stared at Excalibur. This, George says, voice low, is what beat the mountain ghost. Not the Army, not the Marine Corps. This rifle and the man willing to lie perfectly still for 9 hours so he could take one perfect shot. He teaches them the things no pre-war syllabus ever mentioned. How to breathe so shallowly that a blade of grass in front of the muzzle never moves. How to read mirage in 95% humidity when the air itself seems to boil. How to disappear so completely that a Japanese patrol can walk within 10 feet and never know death is watching through a 2.5 times scope. And most important, the mental trick of deciding before you ever leave the lines that you will not fire until the shot is perfect, even if that means coming home with a full magazine and your pride bruised. By the time the course ends, every man can put 5 shots into a Japanese helmet at 500 yards with iron sights, and 3 out of 5 into a rice bowl at the same distance with a scoped Model 70. When the division ships out for Peleliu in September 1944, 28 of those 30 men carry personally owned or acquired Winchester Model 70s, Remington 720s, and custom Springfields. The other 2 refused to give up their M1s and died on the first day. The rest become legend. On Peleliu's Bloody Nose Ridge, a single Marine sniper team, Sergeant Eugene Wade and his spotter, Corporal Ray Peterson, will be credited with 81 confirmed kills in 21 days, almost all with a 1939 production Model 70 that once belonged to a Texas deer hunter. Japanese counter-sniper teams are pulled off the line in despair. They simply cannot find the Americans before the Americans find them. The same pattern repeats on Iwo Jima, Okinawa, every coral hellhole the war drags the Corps through. By VJ Day, the unofficial tally of Japanese officers and specialists killed by these civilian rifles exceeds 3,000. The Army, finally swallowing its pride, issues the M1 Garand with a 2.5 times scope in 1944, then the M1D, and quietly adopts George's loading data for match ammunition. But the real victory is quieter. In 1952, when the newly formed U.S. Army Sniper School at Fort Benning writes its first training circular, the cover photograph is not of a Garand or a Springfield 3. It is a grainy black and white image of a cracked Winchester Model 70 resting on a Guadalcanal ammo crate, 11 worn notches on the stock. The caption reads simply, "Accuracy is final. Today, if you walk into the Scout Sniper Instructor School at Quantico or the Special Operations Target Interdiction course at Fort Bragg, You will still hear instructors quote John George, word for word, without ever mentioning his name. They teach the same breathing sequence, the same bubble of concentration, the same ruthless patience he discovered in the coconut groves west of Point Cruz, and somewhere in the Smithsonian storage, under acid-free cloth and climate control, rests serial number 84,557, the mail-order sweetheart that every general once laughed at. 11 Japanese snipers died proving it wasn't a toy. Every modern American sniper who comes home alive owes that rifle a silent thank you. Because sometimes the thing that changes history isn't a committee, or a billion-dollar program, or a general's bright idea. Sometimes it's just one stubborn lieutenant from Illinois, a catalog order form, and a rifle he believed in when no one else would.